Lucy Gayheart, Book 2, Chapter 5. Lucy was going slowly along the street in the center of the town, approaching the Platte Valley Bank. She had in her handbag a draft from Chicago for the balance she had left on deposit there. She had been carrying this draft about for more than a week, passing and repassing the bank in the hope of seeing Harry Gordon at the cashier's window and surprising him before he could retreat to his private office. This morning she had looked in once again as she went by. Milton Chase, the young cashier, was at the window. Lucy walked deliberately on to the end of Main Street and went into the Union Pacific Railway station. After lingering about the waiting room for a while, reading the posters, she walked back to the bank. There stood Harry in the cashier's cage. It was bound to happen. Sometime. She went in quickly, straight to the window. "Good morning, Harry. Can I open a very small account with you while I am at home?" "Why, certainly. Milton!" he called over his shoulder to the cashier. "A moment, please." Milton came, and Harry stepped aside and motioned him to the window. Then he spoke directly to Milton in his best business manner. "Miss Gayheart wants to open an account with us. Just fix her up with a passbook. And I want you to give her your personal attention. Anything we can do to accommodate her, we'll be glad to do. You understand." With that, he left the cage. Lucy did not know what followed, except that she came out of the bank with a passbook and a little checkbook in her bag. This, too, had failed. She thought if she could confront Harry at the window and that she would have the courage to ask him to see her in his private office for a moment. Then she would tell him, well, she did not know exactly what. Perhaps she would make him understand that she had told him a falsehood in the dining room of the auditorium that night. And she would ask him if he couldn't feel kindly toward her, for old time's sake, and speak kindly when they happened to meet. That was all she wanted, and it would mean a great deal to her. And why, she wondered, as she walked home blindly, her eyes turned inward. Why would it mean so much? She didn't know. Perhaps it was an illusion, like the feeling she had in Chicago that if she once got home, she wouldn't suffer so much. Perhaps it was because he was big and strong and a little hard. He knew the world better than anyone else here. He had some imagination. He rose and fell. He was alive. He moved. He was not anchored. He was not lazy. And he was not a sheep. Conceited and canny he was most days of the month, but on occasion something flashed out of him. There was a man underneath all those layers of caution. He wasn't tame at the core. If he should put his hand on her or look directly into her eyes and flash the old signal, she believed it would waken something and start the machinery going to carry her along. End of Chapter 5, Book 2 of Lucy Gayheart. Lucy Gayheart, Book 2, Chapter 6. Crazy little Fairy Blair came home for Thanksgiving. On the very day she arrived, she ran after Lucy on the street in a grass-green cap and sweater. "Hello, Lucy! Wait a minute," she called. Catching up with Lucy, she took her arm. "I'll walk along with you. I have a trade last for you. One of my fraternity sisters has a brother studying with Professor Auerbach, Sidney Gilchrist. Do you know him? He says Auerbach is crazy about you and tells everyone you're his star pupil. Doesn't that please you?" "Oh, you're so haughty always. And oh, Lucy, that Mr. Saint Sebastian who was drowned in Italy, wasn't he the singer you played for?" Lucy had not heard that name spoken since she left Chicago. Yes, he was. She could feel Fairy's sharp, mischievous little eyes. "Terrible thing, wasn't it? died trying to save a lame man, the paper said. Weren't you dreadfully upset? It must have been thrilling to play for him. Sydney said it put you in the upper circle all right. Fairy had heard that no one in town knew what was the matter with Lucy, and she thought she had a clue. That same afternoon, she telephoned Pauline and asked her to come in for tea. They called it tea, but it was always coffee and cake. Fairy made haste to tell Pauline about the accident on Lake Como and what Sidney Gilchrist had written his sister, that Lucy was desperately in love with Sebastian, and Professor Auerbach had been afraid she would go out of her mind. Pauline went home very much relieved. Her sister had been here nearly 3 months, and this was the first hint she had got as to what had really happened. At least it wasn't so bad as some people thought. The man hadn't jilted her. Pauline believed that to be jilted was almost the worst thing that could befall a respectable girl. Now she knew what to think of that moaning she sometimes heard at night. A shock like that would probably give one bad dreams. She felt sorry for Lucy, and a little in awe of her, for the first time in her life. Women like Pauline have a secret respect for romantic chapters. Lucy had been dignified, she reflected. She hadn't run about telling her troubles. She should, of course, have confided in her sister. She behaved strangely, yet she, Pauline, would behave just so under similar circumstances. She was sure of it. Lucy was certainly a Gayheart. When Pauline entered the house, she greeted her sister in her usual cheery tone, but she was conscious of a certain awkwardness. Lucy was setting the table for supper, so Pauline came into the dining room and sat down for a moment. "Are you going to do anything special this evening?" she asked. "I thought I might go down to play for Mrs. Ramsay. It's Saturday night, so Father will go back to the shop after supper." "Lucy," Pauline began in a deeply confidential tone, "I don't know what we ought to do about Mrs. Harry Gordon." "Do about her? Why, what do you mean?" "She's never returned my call. I can't think why. Maybe she is waiting for you to call before she returns mine. She coming here a bride, and we being old residents. Perhaps she expects us all to come. Father, too?" "Now, don't be contrary, Lucy. We who live here have to consider such things." Yes, I know. But I shan't go to see her until she has been to see you. Let's let it rest at that." End of Chapter 6, Book 2 of Lucy Gayheart. Lucy Gayheart, Book 2, Chapter 7. As Lucy had been lost by a song, so she was very nearly saved by one. 2 weeks before Christmas, a traveling opera company, on their way to Denver to sing for the holiday season, gave a single performance in Haverford. Lucy had noticed the posters as she came and went about the town, but she hadn't even stopped to read them. One evening, at the supper table, her father took 3 blue tickets from his pocket. "Girls, I think we must go to hear the Bohemian Girl next week." From his manner, Lucy could see that he was looking forward to this entertainment. He began asking her to tell him about the opera she had heard in Chicago. Pauline remarked that the local talent was to give Pinafore in February. "That Gilbert and Sullivan stuff, I can't see much in it," said Mr. Gayheart. "If you want something light and amusing now, there is Die Fledermaus, or La Belle Hélène. You never heard it, Lucy? I was crazy about that opera when I was a boy. The Bohemian Girl is a little old-fashioned, maybe, but it's very nice." On the evening of the performance, Mr. Gayheart came home early. He took a bath and shaved very carefully, put on his best black suit, a white waistcoat, and his patent leather shoes. When he came downstairs before supper, His daughters knew he expected to be admired. "Do put on your new evening dress, Lucy. It will please him," Pauline whispered as they went to their rooms. Lucy had meant never to wear that dress again, but she relented. Her father had so little to make him feel gay. When they were getting ready to start, a light snow began to fall, and Mr. Gayheart was fearful for his patent leathers. He put his hand affectionately on Lucy's bare shoulder. "A little shawl or something, maybe, to carry along? I don't want you to take cold down there." Lucy straightened his black necktie and slipped her arm around his neck for a moment, remembering the days in his shop, when he used to keep his ear on her practicing, while he looked through a glass into the insides of watches. Mr. Gayheart set off through the snow flurry, a daughter on either arm. He liked to reach the opera house early and watch the people come in. The theater in every little western town was then called an opera house. On the way, he told Lucy the manager of the house had put in folding chairs in place of the old straight-backed wooden ones. Otherwise, she would find the hall just the same as when she played on the stage for her own commencement exercises nearly 4 years ago. When the conductor, who was also the pianist, appeared, Mr. Gayheart settled back with satisfaction, and the curtain rose on the hunting scene. The chorus was fair. The tenor had his good points, but before the first act was over, the 3 Gayhearts were greatly interested in the soprano. She was a fair-skinned woman, slender and graceful, but far from young. She sang so well that Lucy wondered how she had ever drifted into a little road company like this one. Her voice was worn, to be sure, like her face, and there was not much physical sweetness left in it. But there was another kind of sweetness, a sympathy, a tolerant understanding. She gave the old songs, even the most hackneyed, their full value. When she sang, "I dreamt that I dwelt in marble halls," she glided delicately over the 2 regular stresses and subtly varied the rhythm. She gave freshness to the foolish old words because she phrased intelligently. She was tender with their sentimentality, as if they were pressed flowers which might fall apart if roughly handled. Why was it worth her while, Lucy wondered? Singing this humdrum music to humdrum people, why was it worthwhile? This poor little singer had lost everything: youth, good looks, position, the high notes of her voice, and yet she sang so well. Lucy wanted to be up there on the stage with her, helping her do it. A wild kind of excitement flared up in her. She felt she must run away tonight, by any train, back to a world that strove after excellence, the world out of which this woman must have fallen. It was long before Lucy got to sleep that night. The wandering singer had struck something in her that went on vibrating, something that was like a purpose forming, and she could not stop it. When she awoke in the morning, it was still there, beating like another heart. Day after day it kept up in her. She could give her attention to other things, but it was always there. She felt as if she was standing on the edge of something, about to take some plunge or departure.
That I was the never heard of such a beautiful dream. Now sit down and have your breakfast.
Oh, I've had mine hours ago.
End of chapter 7, book 2, Lucy Gayheart.